Deep below the water of Lake Shelbyville is something rather unique. It's an intricate system of devices looking to preserve and increase the fish population. Don't go away, we'll have much more on that in a discussion with Illinois Department of Natural Resources Fisheries Biologist Mike Mounce. Stay with us.
Fetcher's Pet Supply on the north side of the Charleston Square, serving the EIU community since 1991. Fetcher's welcomes all pets on a leash, is open 7 days a week, and offers made in the USA food. Pet supplies for dogs, cats, reptiles, and fish. Fetcher's Pet Supply in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Power Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
Well, last week on the Paul Report, you'll remember that we set sail on Lake Shelbyville, stayed on top of the water. But on this episode, we're going to go a little bit deeper and talk about some issues that are under the water. Not necessarily issues, but a very good thing for the fish habitat on Lake Shelbyville. And we're joined by Biologist, Fisheries Biologist Mike Mounce. He is with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, been there for years. Thanks for joining us for this episode. I always like to have guests kind of give a brief introduction about you. You're a veteran with the IDNR, so tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been in my current position for over 25 years, worked in Florida for their Game and Fish Commission at the time for 3 years prior to that. Had done some research with the Illinois Natural History Survey for over 4 years prior to that, and then had gotten my master's degree from Eastern Illinois University prior to that. So I have, well over 30 years of experience now.
Well, welcome back to campus as we film here on the campus of Eastern Illinois University. Today we're talking about the Fish Habitat Alliance, the fish population at Lake Shelbyville, and then some other little things at the end of our discussion today. How many different species or what types of fish can we find in Lake Shelbyville?
Huge variety of species of fish reside there. When the Kaskaskia River was impounded, that's a fairly large river, not huge obviously like the Mississippi, but had a wide variety of species, and they just found themselves upstream of the dam, and when it was impounded, then of course they reside there. We have lots of different types of suckers like buffaloes, carp suckers, different common actual suckers, wide variety of forage species for the game fish that some that were natural to the system and some that we stocked in addition to the what was there naturally.
So you're talking fish like crappie, bluegill, walleye.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of the game
bass.
Fish were already present, both species of crappie, largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, and bluegill, channel catfish, flathead catfish. Those were all natural in the river, certainly when it was impounded. We've added walleye, we've added muskie, muskellunge, and recently we've introduced a striped bass, which is the true saltwater variety that can survive in freshwater and have the capacity to get up to 30 pounds.
Not to put you on the spot, but if you had to pick a species, what do you think is the most populated species of fish in Lake Shelbyville? I know a lot of people head there to get that slab of crappie because that's the prime fish for a lot of folks.
Right, and you hit the nail on the head. Crappie are the most popular right now on the lake. Our bass population has suffered from a disease that we call largemouth bass virus. And it is also largemouth bass, then on the other hand, are very popular with the fishermen as well. So those definitely are are primary species of interest to the fishermen.
You know, to keep those species alive and populated in the lake, there was a Fish Habitat Alliance that was formed, and they do such great work, and that's really why we're here today, is to talk about that group, what they do, and how they're working to maintain the fish population at Lake Shelbyville. What is the Fish Habitat Alliance?
Yeah, the Lake Shelbyville Fish Habitat Alliance just came together primarily to apply for federal grants or any kind of grant to aid in our development of the fish habitat in the lake and try to benefit the fisheries and the local communities. We know that a healthy fishery then attracts more fishermen, and then when they come with their dollars to spend for ice, gasoline, food, lodging, all that spills over into the local community and benefits everybody. So we came together to try to apply for these grants, and it was just kind of a lucky situation where all the right people came together, and we've had a lot of success in developing new habitat for the lake, some of it permanent, some of it biological, and I'm not sure, is that answering your question?
Oh, absolutely. And I was going to say, because Lake Shelbyville is under a flood control, you know, the lake goes up and it goes down, that tends to take away some of the habitat around the lake, which is another mission of the Habitat Alliance, is to try to, again, build that up. Is that correct?
Yes. The lake, because it floods especially, and the long-term summer flooding, what it ends up doing is washing a lot of the large woody debris into the uplands. And as that it gets stuck into the vegetation that was there in the upland area. Then as the lake recedes, that woody vegetation or habitat gets stuck in the uplands and is no longer available in the water for the fish to utilize. So over the years, it's also partly through natural degradation, the habitat has declined in the lake, and that's kind of a natural aging process that we expect. But Shelbyville, with the flooding, has different constraints, and that also reduces that habitat.
Let's talk about those habitats, which is a big project of the Habitat Alliance. They get together with the help of very important volunteers. They come together and they build these structures to actually place in Lake Shelbyville to provide shelter, breeding grounds, and other sources of food for fish. I want to know all about these structures that you build, because it's not just Christmas trees, because I know Lake Shelbyville provides that opportunity for folks to come and provide live Christmas trees at the end of the holiday season to go into the lake. But there are man-made structures that are very important, and that's one of the big projects of the Alliance.
Yes. Several years ago, I came across a new structure they call the Georgia Cube. And we were talking about building those. I went to the Corps of Engineers. They were going to provide some money. We were going to start building those. Then I came across some different information that indicated that any kind of structure that you build, the taller you can make it and provide space under that, the more attractive it is to larger game fish like largemouth bass and walleye. So we incorporated, I incorporated that information into a structure that we now call the Lake Shelbyville Cube. And it is basically a Georgia cube raised up off the bottom, and it's constructive PVC pipe frame, which I know you'll show in your video. And then we thread 4-inch drain tile on that, and we create this complex fish attractor, because we know that complexity is very important in attracting fish to these type of structures, or any kind of structure. So we built that together, or came up with that idea. The Corps was going to fund that, and then I happened to meet a bait shop owner over there. His name's Chip Christensen, and Chip's just a ball of fire. I told him about my idea, and he said, "When can we get started?" So we started building these cubes right away. And he actually built the first prototype from my design that we showed to the Army Corps of Engineers. And then the Army Corps of Engineers gave their approval as to whether it'd be safe to utilize in the lake. And from there, we've put in over 500, almost 600 structures as of, it'll be soon when we put the last 70 that we built into the lake.
Because you just had a build with a bunch of volunteers. We're filming at the end of July here, this segment of the Paul Report, and you just had a build with a bunch of volunteers, and you'll be placing those in the lake as well. Strategically, how do you know where to place them? And what is so attractive about these cubes to fish? Is it more of the food supply, they hang around, they like structure?
We'll address this. The attraction is primarily structure. We've put these out in August and went past them 2 days later. So this is the middle of summer. You think the fish aren't necessarily moving as much that time of year. And with a sonar depth finder, we could see that it was just loaded up with fish. And so we know that it's not necessarily a food supply that develops on there. As a lot of fishermen think you have to grow algae on these.
Or plankton or something.
Yeah, or before the fish are attracted to them. Shelbyville has lost so much habitat that just any kind of habitat basically attracts fish, and these are doing very good. In fact, the fishermen have told us to quit building the Georgia cube style because the Lake Shelbyville style is so much more effective in attracting fish.
You also place something called a stump. You build those as well, and they mimic a tree stump, I'm assuming, which is why they're called stumps.
Correct, and you'll see from the photo that it's our crude version of an artificial stump, a stump that has had the base soil eroded around it, so now you have some coarse roots hanging down. We had some local fishermen that are very good fishermen told us that those are really good for catching particularly big crappie on the lake. We figured they'd also be attractive to largemouth bass. I believe Andy Roberts and his friend Bud York presented the idea, and then Chip again developed a prototype, and we tweaked it a little bit to make it hopefully the most attractive to fish. And so far they're working pretty well. We're putting those out in the lake too. We have maybe about 100, and plans are to continue building more.
But placement is important, right, for both the Lake Shelbyville cube and the tree stumps. How do you know exactly where to go with them?
We have an entire committee that is made up of the best fishermen on the lake, a lot of tournament fishermen, and we get together with them in the Army Corps of Engineers, and we sit down and have a meeting, and we literally pick the locations for each cube prior to going out to the lake, or at least sets of cubes. We put them in usually pairs or groups of 5, and I've done that for a long time. Even when we were just doing Christmas trees, I would get with some of the local guides and ask them where the best spots were.
How important are the volunteers to this effort?
Oh, the volunteer effort has just been tremendous. We were lucky to have a group of guys come on board that created the Corps, our executive committee. Bob Kearns, Chip Christensen joined myself and the Army Corps of Engineers staff to apply for these grants, but we would be nowhere without all the fishermen that have gotten involved and businesses who have donated money, and the fishermen who have come together and built these structures, but they've also donated a lot of money to the builds. We've had a few individuals who have donated many hundreds of dollars. And so we come together periodically. We're up to building 70 cubes by usually about 11:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning. And then we have a fish fry that, again, one of the volunteers puts on.
It's perfect.
Yeah, so there's a lot of what I call heroes involved that are behind the scenes that help out doing little things. We have one fellow that generally cuts all our pipe, all our PVC pipe for us. We've had people build jigs that we use for cutting the pipe and drilling holes in the pipe. And so behind the scenes, there's just a lot of people that have come together to make the Lake Shelbyville Fish Habitat Alliance and the project a success.
Yeah, it's important to them, and it's important to their community, and it's important to the recreation of Shelby County. Getting back to the cubes just for a moment, because I find them fascinating. You don't just go out to the lake and drop them. I mean, there can be instances where if you place the cube in a wrong location, it can be ineffective.
Correct. We could place them in a lot of places that, unfortunately, we just physically can't on Lake Shelbyville. We're constrained by safety reasons. We don't want people diving on them and injuring themselves. We're also constrained by the lake coming down in the wintertime to what they call winter pool. And if we get ice formation at any time during that period, it could destroy our structures. So unfortunately, there's really a lot of places that we can place them that would be highly effective. We've lost so much habitat, physical habitat in this lake that we're that far behind. However, there are potentially ineffective places, like you mentioned, and that's where our committee comes together to make sure we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to put them where the fish won't use them most of the year, although in the future maybe we'll do some of that, because you want to give the fishermen opportunities to find fish in all the different seasons. So depending on how many we end up making in the future, we may put them in some places that the average fisherman might not think is ideal, but we're also looking to benefit the fish themselves. And so we balance the placement on whether it's beneficial to both the fishermen and the fish themselves.
Do you share the wealth at Lake Shelbyville, because it's a big lake? So, you know, we're talking the dam all the way up to, Wilburn Creek. I mean, there's a lot of different little inlets and outlets and areas for people to go. And I know fishermen like to stay on one part of the lake. The boaters, the skiers, the tubers, they stay on another part of the lake. Is the wealth shared where you place the habitats?
We're trying to place them throughout the entire length of the lake, yes. And we provide maps on their locations because this has been primarily publicly funded, and we provide maps of the locations on these cubes. And if you just type in a Google search or any kind of search, Lake Shelbyville Fish Attractor Maps, Lake Shelbyville Fish Attractor Maps, and the link to the Army Corps of Engineers website will come up that has the GPS coordinates to each set of cubes that are out there.
So next time I go to Lake Shelbyville to fish, I need to get one of those maps, because that's where it's happening. Is depth important? I mean, the last time I was out at Lake Shelbyville to fish for crappie were kind of chilling about 18 feet down, 17 feet down. They were not up in the banks. They were out in the middle of the water.
Right. Depth is very important, and these we've been placing primarily at about the 12 to 16 foot range right now. Again, we may expand that in the future. And that seems to be the place that the fish tend to use when fishing is the heaviest on the lake. You were out here, I believe, primarily in the summer, and the crappie will move out into open water and school out in open water. They'll a lot of times orient to structure if it's out there, but we haven't started putting a lot of structure that deep, except for towards the south end of the lake where maybe you were fishing anyway with Ken. And there's some places down there we have some in about 16 feet of water, because the water clarity there allows us to put them deeper. You only have oxygen to the depth that the light penetrates, and if we put them below that layer, especially in the upper end of the lake, the fish wouldn't use them in the summer. However, on the lower end of the lake, where again clear water, light penetrates further, we can place them deeper down there.
Also, an important part of the habitat for fish, as we've kind of come to the end of our discussion, Mike, is vegetation and plants. I mean, just as you focus on building the cubes and stumps and placing Christmas trees, plants are an important part of the ecological system at Lake Shelbyville too.
Yes, you're exactly right, Kelly. We're trying to introduce a variety of plants to Lake Shelbyville. I have over the years. It's very difficult because of the lake flooding, which we're experiencing this summer. But with the Army Corps of Engineers, again, we've developed an aquatic plant nursery, and we're raising our plants there. Then when the time is right on the lake, we introduce them to the lake. We surround them with some fencing. Unfortunately, people think that those are possibly fish traps on occasion. But we put fencing around them, protect them from things that like to eat plants, give them a better chance to survive and start developing. We've had some good success, at least short term. We'll see how we survive through this flood. We're trying to pick species that will survive flooding and the difficult conditions that we find in Lake Shelbyville. And if not, if these don't survive, we'll try again. Partly what we were talking about earlier, we're not only trying to introduce the plants, but seeds, a seed source that if the conditions are right in the future, those seeds have an opportunity to then sprout and repopulate the lake if we've had a particularly bad flood.
Excellent. Well, Mike Mounce with the you're an Illinois Fisheries Biologist. Thank you so much for sharing information on Lake Shelbyville and the fishing habitat, and also what you're doing to continue to build the vegetation at the lake. We hope today, maybe we've encouraged somebody for the first time to head out and check out the lake and maybe to discover the waters and catch a few different species of fish.
Yes, great.
All right. Thank you, Mike. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Paul Report. Until next time, I am your host, Kelly Goodwin. We'll see you then. A 16-year-old dog in South Dakota is feeling doggone good these days, thanks to a cool therapy, literally. Reporter Travis Cummins introduces us to Jake in this Paul Report Extra.
If you can't move, you don't move, and then you can't.
Carissa Sieverding worried about the fate of her energetic toy Sheltie Corgi she's had since childhood after he was hit with sudden onset vertigo late last year.
He was just laying in bed. He'd look at us, we'd carry him outside, just go to the bathroom, come back in, and just lay there, and he was tired.
After not being able to shake back from the disease and being down for a while, things weren't looking up.
Anybody that's had a dog or had to go through that knows how difficult it can be to start discussing what was coming next.
Sieverding called up her friend Tara, the owner of the Body Spa in Rapid City, who introduced Jake to cryotherapy.
So our goal has been to give another alternative to pain management in the Black Hills that does not involve drugs or opiates or any other aggressive means of treatment.
In just 3 minutes, a whole body machine fills with nitrogen vapor to drop the ambient temperature to a range of -90 Celsius to -120, creating a dry chill that cues an evolutionary bioresponse to extreme cold. Or for a more localized treatment, what Jake uses a cryo machine, reducing inflammation and speeding up healing in a specific area.
We brought him in for his first session, and he had his little strut back. When he shook out afterwards, his body shake went all the way through his hips.
Going so far as to shrink a tumor on Jake's leg, the Body Spa says dogs are just one type of patient.
PTSD, anxiety, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, to just wanting an overall wellness, to our athletes who were looking for a faster, easier way to recover as well.
And then they get out of cryo and they are able to basically walk without the crutch, without the cane, without the walker. They just move easier.
In hopes to prove that the refreshing session promotes the natural healing process.
It's a better quality of life that we see from people.
It's an attitude change. The comfort level that he has, he's excited.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Power Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Fetcher's Pet Supply on the north side of the Charleston Square, serving the EIU community since 1991. Fetcher's welcomes all pets on a leash, is open 7 days a week, and offers made in the USA food. Pet supplies for dogs, cats, reptiles, and fish. Fetcher's Pet Supply in Charleston.
Additional support for the Paw Report on WEIU is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you.